Guys, so today on Sugar Glider Diaries we're going to make a no-sew multi-purpose hammock, pouch, trampoline type thing. So when I create a toy, or especially a fleece toy, I don't really have a very specific plan in mind. I kind of have a general idea of what I want to do, and then I just kind of experiment and see how it comes together. I've tried to make some no-sew pouches before with 2 different layers, and the problem is that when you knot the 2 layers together, there becomes some little gaps very, very easily, even if you tie your knots really, really tight. So I have kind of given up on that for now because safety comes first, obviously. So I am doing just a single layer. So all you would need if you're gonna make this was a large piece of anti-pill fleece, scissors, and some C-links. So I'm gonna kind of walk you through what I was doing while I was creating that, kind of what was going through my mind and what I was thinking. And hopefully you can make this. Unfortunately, I don't have measurements, but frankly, the measurements wouldn't really matter because really what you would want to be doing is make this for the dimensions of your cage, which I can pretty much guarantee you is not my cage because my cage is discontinued and I cannot find it anywhere to even tell you what the dimensions of it would have been or what they are, or what they'd be comparable to. So anyway, so I'll walk you through it. We'll see how it goes. Hope you enjoy. Okay, so at this stage, I'm just figuring out how big I want my piece of fleece. If you're going to create something and you want to have kind of frills hang off of it, I don't know if frills are the right word, but anyway, pieces of fleece hanging off of it that you'll see this does have, you want to make it extra big because remember, you're going to lose that length all around it because the base of it is going to be a certain size, but then you're going to lose quite a bit of area, I guess you could say, by having the little hangy down pieces. That's the technical term, hangy down pieces, I think. So I made a nice large piece of fleece. I like to work with pieces that are large enough that, you know, you can have a lot of variety and you can have a lot of, you know, hangy down pieces, but you can also work with it in your lap. So I created this nice large piece. It's almost like a little blankie. And then I folded it twice, folded it in half, and then folded it again. And now I am making the officially named hangy down pieces. I don't know what I'm doing with my hand. Something very deep and artistic, I'm sure. I don't know why I did that. Anyway, so now I'm cutting strips. You can see those strips are, oh, I see. That's why I'm doing that. The length of my hand. So I was making sure that I would have enough room all the way around to do that. So instead of leaving the fleece all in one large piece and then going through and cutting around the perimeter, basically by folding it in half 2 times, I'm only cutting the sides that are all open. So you'll see all the layers, there's no fold. So that way, when you open it all the way up again, it has frills, hanging down pieces around the whole thing. You'll see that, I think, when I open it back up. But that's what I'm doing. And the pieces are probably about an inch and a half wide. You want them to be nice and wide because you'll see later that we texture them. So you don't want them to be too skinny unless you want just skinny pieces. That's fine too, I guess. But for what we're doing here, you want pieces that are about at least an inch wide, if not an inch and a half. And then as I get to the corner, you'll see that I end up cutting out that corner piece because when you go to the other side and you start making your cuts for the frills or the hangy down pieces, it won't really work. Like I couldn't start at the very edge because that piece is going to get cut off. I don't know if that makes sense, but those are really nice size for little blankies. So I'm just saving those and I'm going to put those in the cage for blankies. I realized that I cut one extra piece too long because now I want all my frills to be about the length of my hand. Very official measurements. I take this very seriously, as you can tell. The fun part about doing this kind of stuff for me is just the creative process. And like, I started out making one thing and this ended up turning into something else. So that's why I do it this way instead of making an official tutorial, because honestly, I don't really have a good plan. So now I'm cutting that folded edge so that the frills on that side are all the same width. So you don't have big, thick chunks on the corners. And now I'm making the 4 corners of your blanket, you're gonna make your hanging down pieces extra long so you have room to braid them and tie a C-link on. So that's what I'm doing. You're gonna repeat this process on all 4 corners. So again, make it extra, cut it, make it extra long, and then you're gonna just braid it. And then once you have a pretty good amount of material still left, you're gonna then put your C-link on there, make sure it doesn't have any little barbs, cut that off. Just tie it with a knot on there, at least double tie it. And then you're gonna do that on all 4 corners. So I skipped through that so you don't have to watch me do the same thing. And now I'm just kind of playing with it like, is this gonna work to be a pouch? Is this gonna work to be, what is this gonna look like once it's all folded up? And I realized that if I wanted it to be a pouch, because I didn't make a square, I made more of a rectangle, there was long edges. There was 2 long edges and then 2 short edges. So where the long edges was more of a gap than I wanted for a quote unquote pouch. So I decided to make another section where I could braid it on the long side in the middle. So you have your rectangle, and on the 2 long sides in the middle, you're going to take 3 pieces. You'll see me do that in a little bit. And you're going to actually braid those and put a C-link in. So it just gives you more options for hanging it, and you'll see that later. But see, I'm noticing that it has kind of gaps in there, and I don't want them to accidentally roll out if they did end up sleeping in it. So I wanted it to be a little bit more enclosed. I'm sure they wouldn't actually roll out. They're not toddlers, but in my mind, I wanted it to be more enclosed. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm taking those 3 pieces. I did not cut them any further though, because I didn't want there to be kind of a inlet in the bulk of the fabric. I don't know if that makes any sense. But anyway, I did not actually cut those any deeper because they're not in the corners, they're in the middle of the long length. So I'm gonna do that on both sides. And then I'm gonna probably play around, you might see me play around with how I would hang it. You know, you could hang it from like a thick bracelet and secure all your C-links on the thick bracelet and then put 1 C-link on the thick bracelet and hang it that way. You could hang it directly on the cage, but that's a lot of unsecuring if you're going to take that off every day. I'm excited. I just discovered what I'm actually going to do with this. When I first made it, I'm trying to make quite a few different no-sew things for people like me that don't sew. For sugar gliders, obviously. And this originally was going to be an attempt to make a sleeping pouch, but I think what it's actually going to end up being is more of a fleece like shelf, or like a kind of a hammock that goes from the front of the cage to the back of the cage, kind of in a corner. I'll show you obviously when it's all done, how it actually looks in the cage. But so these little C-links attach on, and then it stretches. Let's see, there's like a long end and a short end. So I think it's gonna stretch kind of like this from the front to the back. And then it'll be kind of like a little place where they can sit. My gliders seem to really like those kind of places where they can kind of sit and perch, eat their snack away from the rest of them, or groom or whatever. So, and I can obviously hide treats in here for them to find in the morning, or their morning or night. Anyway, so that's what I'm gonna do with it. So now I'm gonna take pieces of fleece Like I have some colors that have matched my other things that I've done. I'm just gonna tie them on here. So I tie it one tie like this, and then so that it doesn't just like slide off, because obviously this can move around, I scooch it all the way down to the base and then tie it again with the piece that I tied it to. So now it's like a double knot. And then I'll take my scissors and do different kinds of feathering. So like one piece might be this kind of zigzag type pattern. I showed this on my dream catcher one, my dream catcher no-sew item, but I'll show it quickly again here. This one really makes the piece longer, which is kind of cool because it adds some length without having to actually have really long pieces of fleece. So you can do like that, kind of like a zigzaggy. You can also do one that looks more kind of like a feather. So you kind of cut at an angle all the way down. And you can actually cut the corners off if you want, like, so I cut it all the way off. And then you cut the other all the way down. And then that kind of looks like kind of a feathery texture. Anyway, there's really no wrong way to do it. There's quite a few. You can also do kind of like a more of a zigzag this way. This also stretches it out, but it's more of a zigzag than a straight across. I like doing a variety of these styles in one piece so that it just kind of adds more texture and dimension. So once I have them all tied on there, then I'll texture them all too. So it looks so much different once everything's textured. Sorry about the lighting too, but when I do toy making, it's almost always at night. And I'll probably include like an instructional kind of thing at the very beginning, just explaining what this is, and then I'll kind of walk you through it as I did kind of I just decided to record it just in case it turned out. I didn't really have a game plan on this. I just kind of decided I would just try to make something. Like I said, it was going to be a pouch. It still could be a pouch. You could still attach all of the C-links and make it into more of a pouch, kind of a little bit of an open environment type pouch. There's a couple ways you could secure that. There's actually 6 C-links somewhere in here. Oh, here we go. So, where's that? Oh, there it is. So you could attach them all, and it could be a pouch. It could be, you could attach them more like, it's probably hard for you guys to even see what I'm talking about. I'll have to show later, but you could attach like 3 together on each side, and it could be, well, this isn't working at all. Anyway, I'll show you later. But you could attach 3 together at a side, and it could be more of like a hammock, or you can stretch it all out. So I kind of like that it's multi-purpose. So then you can use the same piece for quite a few different things. And you could make multiple ones of these, and then you use one as a sleep sack, and one of them as a hammock, and one of them as a trampoline, or whatever this is going to be, kind of stretching across. I don't know if it'll be bouncy enough. A trampoline, from what I understand, is more of, it's like stretched across the cage, and then when they jump on it, it's kind of pulled so tight that it kind of has a little bit of a bounce to it. So depending on how well you did your lengths, it could feasibly do that. Or if it doesn't stretch from one side to the other, then you could just kind of hang it without it being pulled taut, and it would be more like a hammock. Or then you could put all the pieces together, or some of the pieces more vertically, and then it would hang more like a sleep sack. So anyway, I'll keep making it, and I'll show you the end result.
All right, so now I'm doing the most important creative step, putting something on to watch. Okay, so now I'm just securing some extra pieces of fleece. They don't have to be an exact length. They can be whatever length you want. You want them to be at least a couple inches thick though, so that you can fringe them. If they're not an inch and a half or a couple inches thick, then you're gonna have a hard time cutting them like I was showing you how to do before. Make sure you double knot each piece and knot it with the piece that's already secured to the base like I showed you before. So at this point, I decided to cut the parts that were braided into more of a fringe on the end. So I cut those different than any other part just to make them stand out a little bit more. So that's what you're seeing me do there. I'm cutting them in a fringe and then I'm pulling them because when it's the stretchy part, it kind of makes it like curl a little bit if it's just the right texture, and it kind of makes it look more like a fringe. So that's what I'm doing. I think it's really important to remember too, when you're just creating things like this, just have fun with it. And anti-pill fleece is not that expensive. So if you end up messing up and doesn't turn out the way you wanted it to, you can always reuse the pieces of fleece for something else down the line. Literally my little fox socks on. Those were cute. And I'm watching Awesome Sugar Glitter Mommy as I'm doing this project. I just thought I'd share. She's awesome. If you have never watched any of her videos, you really should check them out. Awesome Sugar Glitter Mommy on YouTube. She has helped me a lot. I watched her videos on a loop when I was preparing to bring my sugar glitters home. So anyway, little shout out to Awesome Sugar Glitter Mommy is what I'm watching while I'm making this toy. So this is one way that you could hang that item that we just made. You can hang it across, you know, the front of the cage to the back. And then it also has, you know, plenty of space for them to sit here. So that's one way that you could do it. So I've taken all of these pieces and feathered them. Have a wider view there. You could also hang it like this. So this is hanging from a shelf and it kind of creates a little kind of hammock where they could go inside there. So kind of a pouch hammock type thing. Or you could connect all 6 of the pieces together and make kind of more of a pouch formation there too.